Imagine an argument online. One person posts a statistic, another says the source is biased, someone responds with a personal story, someone else questions their motives. Within minutes, the conversation is no longer about the original issue. It is about intelligence, identity, hypocrisy, tone, and which person can produce the most humiliating screenshot. We often say the problem is that people no longer know how to argue, but a classical rhetorician might describe the problem more precisely. No one identified the actual point of disagreement. No one decided which audience mattered. No one arranged the case. No one answered the strongest objection. They began speaking before they had finished thinking. To argue like a classical rhetorician is not to sound ancient. It is to build persuasion deliberately. This is reclaiming rhetoric. Today we are looking at how to argue like a classical rhetorician in the modern age. For many people, classical rhetoric begins and ends with three words: ethos, pathos, logos. Those concepts matter, but they are only part of a much larger method. Aristotle described rhetoric as the ability to identify the available means of persuasion in a particular case. That phrase matters. In a particular case. The classical rhetorician is not searching for one universal trick that works on everyone. The question is, given this issue, this audience, and these circumstances, what forms of persuasion are actually available? Later, rhetorical traditions organized that work into the 5 canons: invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. Another classical framework divided the speech itself into introduction, statement of facts, division, proof, refutation, and conclusion. The details vary across writers, but the larger principle is remarkably consistent. An argument is a process. It is not a pile of evidence followed by an opinion. The first step is to find the actual point of disagreement. Before constructing the argument, ask, what are we really arguing about? Classical stasis theory helped speakers locate the question where a controversy actually comes to a standstill. Is this a dispute about fact? Did something happen? Is the claim true? Is it a dispute about definition? What should we call this thing? What category does it belong to? Is the dispute about quality or value? Is the thing good, harmful, justified, serious, or important? Or are we arguing about procedure or action? What should be done? Who should decide? The kind of disagreement determines the kind of argument you need. Imagine a school district debating whether students should be allowed to use generative AI for assignments. One person says, students are already using it. That is a claim about fact. Another says, using AI to write an assignment is plagiarism. Now the dispute is partly about definition. Another says, AI prevents students from learning how to think. That is a judgment about quality and consequence. Someone else says, schools should permit it only when students disclose how it was used. Now we have a policy proposal. All 4 people appear to be arguing about AI, but they may be standing at 4 different points in the argument. The classical move is to stop and complete 2 sentences. We agree that, and we disagree about out. Until you can do that, you may not have one argument. You may have several arguments talking past one another. Step 2 is invention. In classical rhetoric, invention does not mean inventing facts. It means discovering the arguments available in the case. This is where ethos, pathos, and logos become useful. Logos asks, what claim am I making? What reasons support it? What evidence establishes those reasons? What assumptions connect the evidence to the conclusion? Ethos asks, what does this argument reveal about my judgment? Do I appear informed, fair, honest about uncertainty? Do I show goodwill toward the people I am asking to persuade? Credibility is not merely something you walk into the room possessing. You can build it or destroy it through the choices you make inside the argument. Pathos asks something different. What does this audience fear losing? What do they hope to protect? Which emotions genuinely belong to the issue? A parent, teacher, student, and administrator can encounter the same AI policy through completely different concerns. A parent may fear that a child will stop learning. A teacher may worry that genuine student work will become impossible to evaluate. A student may fear being punished for using a tool they were never clearly told was prohibited. An administrator may worry about inconsistent rules that teachers cannot realistically enforce. A classical rhetorician does not choose ethos, pathos, or logos as though selecting one button from a menu. They build a case in which reasoning, credibility, and appropriate emotion reinforce one another. And they test the other side. This is one of the most valuable classical habits and one of the rarest online. Before presenting your case, ask what the strongest intelligent objection to it would be. Not the stupidest objection, not the easiest comment to screenshot, not the weakest version of the opposing position, the strongest one. If your argument collapses as soon as the other side is stated fairly, you did not have a strong argument. You had an argument protected from contact. Step 3 is audience. A weak argument begins with, "What do I want to say?" A rhetorical argument begins with, "Who must make a judgment?" In the ancient world, different audiences made different kinds of decisions. A jury judged what happened in the past. A political assembly decided what should happen in the future. A ceremonial audience evaluated what deserved praise or blame. Modern audiences are often more complicated because the person directly answering you may not be the audience that matters most. Suppose you are speaking at a school board meeting about the AI policy. The loudest critic in the room may not be persuadable. Your real audience may be undecided board members, parents watching from home, teachers who will have to enforce the rule, students who will encounter a clipped section of the meeting later. Online, the audience can become even stranger. The person replying to your post is one audience. The hundreds of people silently reading are another. A supervisor copied on an email may matter more than the person you addressed. A recommendation system may determine which portion of your argument is circulated at all. Before you argue, ask, who can make the decision? Who can influence it? What do they already believe? What do they need explained? And what would make them stop listening? If your goal is to persuade undecided parents, humiliating your loudest opponent may earn applause while accomplishing almost nothing rhetorically. Step 4 is arrangement. A pile of strong points is not yet a strong argument because order changes how information is received. One classical structure gives us 6 useful jobs. First comes the introduction. Gain attention, establish relevance, and create enough goodwill for the audience to continue. In the AI debate, do not begin by accusing one side of wanting children to cheat or the other of being terrified of technology. Begin with the shared problem. Schools need rules that protect learning while acknowledging that these tools already exist. Then give the statement of facts. What technology are we actually discussing? How are students using it? What rules already exist? What remains unclear? Then comes the division. Identify the exact point at issue. The question is not whether AI exists. The question is under what conditions students may use it without misrepresenting the work as entirely their own. Now the audience knows what it is being asked to judge. Then comes proof, reasons and evidence for your position. Then refutation. Answer the strongest relevant objection. If you support limited AI use with disclosure, address the real concern that disclosure rules may be difficult to enforce. Finally comes the conclusion. Recap the case, clarify what is at stake, and show what judgment should follow. You do not need to reproduce that structure mechanically. A 6-minute video and a 3-paragraph email obviously cannot look like a Roman courtroom speech. But the rhetorical jobs still exist. The audience still needs orientation, context, a clear issue, support, an answer to resistance, and a reason to care about the conclusion. Step 5 is style. Arguing like a classical rhetorician does not mean saying, "Thus, good citizens, it is incumbent upon us." Classical rhetoric was deeply concerned with language appropriate to the subject, audience, and occasion. The modern lesson is decorum. Use the style the situation requires. Be plain when the audience needs clarity. Repeat when an idea needs emphasis. Use analogy when someone needs a mental model. Use emotion when the stakes genuinely involve emotion. Do not use complexity to perform intelligence. And do not use simplicity to conceal missing reasoning. Style should make the argument easier to grasp, not make the speaker look important. Then come memory and delivery. Memory once meant more than memorizing sentences. It meant possessing the case well enough to speak, adapt, answer objections, and respond when the situation changed. The modern equivalent is simple. Know your evidence. Know where it came from. Know what it actually establishes. Know its limits. Know the strongest objection. Know what you will say when someone asks the question you hoped they would avoid. Delivery once emphasized voice, gesture, expression, and physical presence. Those still matter. But modern delivery also includes the title, the thumbnail, the opening sentence, the length, the visual hierarchy, the caption, the platform, the timing, the accessibility, the link, the 15-second clip that circulates without the 5 minutes that came before it. The same argument delivered as a 40-page report, a 6-minute video, a short social clip, and an angry reply beneath someone else's post is not rhetorically identical. The words may be the same. The audience, context, pace, and available interpretation are not. Here is the warning. A carefully invented, arranged, styled, and delivered argument can still be dishonest. Technique does not supply character automatically. Quintilian famously imagined the ideal orator as a good person, skilled in speaking. The underlying warning still matters. Eloquence separated from judgment can become a weapon in the wrong hands. The modern version is straightforward. Do not clip away the context that weakens your claim. Do not present uncertainty as certainty, because confidence performs better online. Do not answer the weakest version of the opposing argument. Do not confuse making someone look foolish with helping an audience reach a sound judgment. Refutation is not the rhetorical name for dunking on someone. It is the discipline of showing that your position can survive the strongest relevant challenge. The goal of rhetoric is not merely to win the exchange. It is to improve the quality of judgment available to the audience. So, before you post, speak, publish, present, or reply, ask, what is the actual point of disagreement? Who must make the judgment? What forms of proof are available? What does this audience already know and value? In what order should they encounter the case? What is the strongest objection? What style fits this occasion? How will the medium change the message? And what am I refusing to do, even if it might help me win? That is the classical method translated into modern practice. To argue like a classical rhetorician, you do not need a toga. You do not need Latin terminology. And you do not need to make every sentence sound like it belongs on a marble monument. You need to discover before you declare. Find the dispute. Study the audience. Build the proofs. Arrange the case. Answer the objection. Choose the style. Control the delivery. And remember that persuasion carries responsibility. The modern world rewards speed. Classical rhetoric offers a different advantage: deliberateness. Do not begin by asking, how do I defeat this person? Ask, what does this audience need in order to judge well? Then build the argument that helps them do it.